Hey guys, Keep on Rockin' 404 here with the Music Breakdown, this time reviewing Filth by Swans. Swans are an experimental rock band who for 30 years have been releasing albums despite a breakup between 1997 and 2010. Now, Swans have never been a band to stick to one genre. In fact, over their 30 years, they've gone through various different distinct phases and styles. But the band's initial sound had them releasing some of the most brutal and nightmarish albums of all time, those being Filth, Cop, Greed, and Holy Money. This was when the band was releasing no-wave music. And if you're not familiar with that genre, then basically it's just really harsh shit. That's all you really need to know. Out of these 4 albums, Filth is definitely my favorite. It's a lot less boring than those albums are for me, though with that being said, Cop and Holy Money are pretty good. Filth just has this feeling that I don't think any of the other Swans no-wave era albums really capture, and that is the sensation of just getting ear tortured. There's no doubt that Cop is heavier and more disturbing, but Filth is just more of an assault. It's about as brutal as its album cover. And that really doesn't let up until its final track, because this album can be very hard to decipher and, on first listen, painful to listen to. And for me, that works to its benefit. You see, Filth is not trying to make you like it. If anything, it's trying to repulse you as much as it possibly can. And in that sense, it works. Listening to Filth is like trudging through mud while stepping on hot coals. There's an urgency to it, but it's one that you feel you can't escape from. Filth, and the rest of early Swans' material, remain the only albums that give me a physical reaction. This album repulses me as much as it draws me in, and it hurts me as much as it pleases me. And that's the biggest praise I can say for it. That's what it wants to do. The album opens up with its strongest track, Stay Here. This track is 5 minutes of incomprehensible heaviness and of inescapable brutality. I love it. It's full of lyrics like and it's not for the faint of heart. This track really is the perfect opener for this album because it represents the album's sound. If someone wanted to know what Filth sounds like, I would play them this track. No track on this album even really has a riff. Big Strong Boss kind of does, but it hardly counts. Take Power, for example. The only consistent thing about this track is the drum beat. The guitar just drones on in the background with wailing feedback and hypnotic distortion. Meanwhile, Jarrah is yelling about abusing your money and power. It's clear in this album that Michael Jarrah is not too happy with the human race and its corruption. This whole album is really a misanthrope's wet dream. He constantly spouts lyrics like sexual control, don't die, smoke them too, and and the music really matches this uncomfortable and unpleasant tone perfectly. The track Freak is just a brutal assault on your ears. It opens with the most intense sound on the entire album, and the whole track just carries on like that. In fact, pretty much every track just rides out the same musical idea for the entirety of its runtime, but it actually works. Swans understand how to use repetition, and if they want to hammer something in, they will. And it results in a very hypnotic sound. I absolutely love the drums in this album, by the way. And the fuzzy and industrial bass lines are also fantastic, and one of the first things you'll notice when listening to this album. If I have one complaint with Filth, it would be the final track, Gang. This is the only track that I don't like. It's just a bore fest, which is saying a lot considering the fact that the track is only a little over 3 minutes long. I think Weakling would have been a much better closer for this album, and so I usually just skip Gang altogether. The track even makes you think it's done because it fades out, then it fades back in, then it just fades back out again. I have heard this tactic done properly before, don't get me wrong, but here it only serves to hammer in the point that Gang is not a particularly competent closer. However, I have to say that Filth is a truly unique album, and one that I do enjoy a lot. I would imagine that in 1983, this stuff would have been really brutal, and it hasn't really lost any of its punch since then. Swans would eventually go on to do bigger and better things, but this album remains a thing of its own, and it still begs to be listened to. That being said, I wouldn't really recommend this to average music listeners. This is heavy, this is intense, and it's generally unpleasant. And if you're not sure as to whether or not it's for you, then go listen to Stay Here. That'll tell you all you need to know. I give Filth a great 8.5 out of 10. And pretty soon, I'll be getting to work on a Swans retrospective, where I will go over the band's varied discography and discuss their evolution. I hope you'll join me when I do. Bye, guys.